Good evening. I want to thank everybody for logging into this evening for our webinar on what you need to know about joint venturing. We're going to be having a guest host tonight, or guest presenter, to talk about kind of things you need to know about joint venturing. And we'll talk a little bit about the IRA as well in regards to how to do that. So again, thanks for attending our webinar. I'm Scott Maurer with Advanta IRA. So again, thanks for tuning in this evening. We are recording this webinar. So if you're somebody who is watching the webinar on our YouTube channel after the fact, and you have questions for myself or Patty, you can certainly reach out to us by email or phone, obviously, to call and ask any questions that you might have. If you have questions during the webinar, if it's on the IRA side, go ahead and throw those out there. If it's more about what Patty's talking about, she is asking maybe to simply email her in private so she can address your particular question as well. My name is Scott Maurer. I'm the Director of Business Development for Advanta IRA. I've been with the company for a number of years and have handled a lot of different webinars on a number of topics, so we're always excited to bring a guest presenter in and talk about something other than just a little bit on the basics of self-directed IRAs. So we're happy to have Patty Pett with Ader Financial join us this evening here in a few minutes. Like I said, I've been with the company for a number of years. I handled a lot of initial transactions when I first started helping people through the process of investing their IRA, their retirement fund, into alternative assets, whether that was buying a piece of real estate, making a private loan, investing in a private placement. That is what we do here at Advanta IRA. I spend more of my time now educating individuals and professionals about self-directed IRAs and what you can do with retirement funds that your brokerage firm typically does not allow you to do. Now, Advanta IRA is a self-directed retirement plan administrator. We have clients all over the country. We have 2 offices, one in Tampa Bay, Florida, one in the Atlanta area, but we serve clients throughout the United States. We have clients in California and New York, even some in Hawaii and Alaska, all over the country. And common theme with all of them, obviously, is they're looking for using their IRA, using their retirement funds to invest in something that's alternative, something that's different, that's not allowed in their current custodian. We do pride ourselves on our customer service. We really try to give a personal touch to each client that we have in regards to how we service the account, and certainly the experience and knowledge of all of the individuals who work for Advanta IRA. We've been kind of combined 20 years in the industry, and again, we use banks. We insure all cash held with Advanta is FDIC insured. For any undirected cash you have in your IRA, of course, if you have an investment, so a piece of real estate or a note, those types of assets are going to have their own protections that you need to look out for. And again, we have almost over 700. Actually, that number is a little outdated. Over 900 million in assets. Like I said, we have a personal touch. Each new account holder gets a dedicated account manager, one person who they can call, they can reach out to for anything relating to their account, whether it's making that initial investment, whether it's questions about paying bills out of their account or other investments they're looking at making in the IRA. That account manager will be your personal contact. You have their number, you have their email. You're not waiting in an 800 number, or calling an 800 number and then waiting in line in order to talk to the next available representative. And we also pride ourselves on our education. We offer a lot of events, whether it's a live class in our Georgia or our Florida location, or whether it's webinars like the one we're having tonight. We do a lot of them during the day. We're trying to do some more at night, different times to reach people. And we like to bring, like I said, guests in as well to talk about their area of expertise. Some of our webinars are just the basics of self-directed IRAs. Others we had someone recently on talking about multifamily investing in real estate. We've had an attorney talking about things you need to look out for during a closing, or choosing the right type of entity if you're investing in real estate. So we really try to bring this knowledge to you as a bonus and a benefit to really educate you, or so that you get educated on what it is that you're looking at investing. So we do that through our events, our seminars, and our webinars. And we also have, like I said, have that on-demand channel. Some of you may be watching the recording on our YouTube channel, and that's that on-demand center at YouTube. All of the webinars we've done and recorded are there for you to watch and play back at your convenience. So again, going back and looking and seeing at some of the guests we've had and a lot of the different topics we've had, some of the questions you may have, tonight might be addressed in some of those other webinars as well. So for those of you who are new to self-directed IRA accounts, why is it something that is new to you, and why haven't you heard about it before? And I think the most common reason why is that simply most IRAs, most retirement accounts or old 401ks are held by banks and brokerage firms who are offering their clients limited investment options. Okay, they only offer those investments that they sell. They're not willing to hold real estate. They're not willing to hold private notes or mortgages or private placements inside an IRA account because it's not their business model. But the IRS regulations are actually quite broad on the different assets and different things you can invest in using your IRA account. You just have to have a custodian like Advanta who's willing to hold that asset in your plan. So it's not a matter of you can't do it. It's a matter of maybe the particular custodian you have isn't allowing you to do it under their particular plan model. Now, the types of accounts that can be self-directed, if you're, again, watching tonight and thinking, okay, I want to get investing in real estate, or I want to start looking at joint venturing, and I want to look into this procedure, and how can I do it with my retirement account, or what accounts qualify? Any type of IRA, traditional, Roth IRA, a SEP, or a simple, if you have that account currently with a brokerage firm, all of those accounts would qualify to be self-directed. Also, not on this screen in particular, but if you have an old 401k, maybe an old 403b plan for companies or institutions where you used to work, as long as it's a former employer plan, there's no restriction as well on you rolling that money over into a self-directed IRA and then in turn investing it into the assets that we're going to talk about tonight. So again, any type of IRA qualifies, any type of former employer's plan qualifies. The only restriction is on current employer plans. Current employer can restrict your ability to move money out of that account as long as you're still employed there. But that's something just to check with that administrator because some of them do allow for some early rollovers. I mentioned the types of assets that we see. We're going to talk a lot about paper assets tonight and doing private lending and joint venturing with a private loan. But obviously we see people invest in real estate, whether it's rental properties, rehabs, commercial, residential, etc. But we see a number of paper assets where the IRA is not investing in the brick and mortar or the dirt of a piece of land, but rather in the paper, in someone signing a mortgage loan or signing a note, promising to pay back to their IRA as a lender and as a bank. That is an option for an investment that you can hold inside your IRA account. Tax liens are another form of paper asset. Unsecured notes, debenture notes, option contracts, etc. Just again, where the investment itself is a piece of paper that someone is signing, whether some type of contract or a promissory note, they're signing the piece of paper, and the actual investment is that piece of paper, not the piece of real estate that you're looking at or can touch. Now, if you're looking to get started with a self-directed IRA account, most people don't realize you move money from one account to the other. It's not a taxable event. It's a very simple process to either transfer money from an IRA to an IRA or do a direct rollover from an employer plan like an old 401k into an IRA. Most of the time it takes between probably a few days to a few weeks depending on who your other custodian is and what type of an account you're moving from. But as far as the actual movement of funds, we assist in this process. If you set up an account with Advanta, we're going to help you right at the outset to get these assets moved over. Whether you're transferring it from an IRA to IRA or doing a direct rollover, again, you can do either or both. It can be done in partial amounts, and again, all movements of those funds are not taxable. The types of private lending we're going to get into, Patty will probably get into more detail about different types of ways to structure investments, but just in short, really any type of loan, whether it's a traditional mortgage, it's short-term transactional loans, it's a promissory note, you're doing some equity participation or joint venturing, which we're going to talk about more tonight, or if you're securing these notes with other assets, any type of loan from your IRA can be made as long as you're making it to a third party. When it comes time to making those terms, the amount you're going to lend, the interest rate, the length of term, etc., that is all between you as the lender and your IRA account as the lender, and obviously your borrower, whoever you're choosing to lend money to. We offer a seminar and a webinar. You can catch it again on our YouTube page. We call Be the Bank, with your IRA, where we talk specifically about using your IRA as a private lender. We go into more detail on the IRA side of things than we're going to go into tonight. So just maybe check that webinar out, learn more about how your IRA can sit in the place of a banker and make those private loans. And the reason why people like to do private loans in an IRA, one, you get to sit in that bank position and determine the terms. But when you do so, you're really setting the rate at which your IRA is growing. If you know you're lending money out at 8, 10, 12%, and it's consistently being paid, you already know what your IRA is growing at. You're not worrying about the stock market going up and down or whether or not you have vacancies in a rental property, et cetera. It's one of the reasons people like doing private lending in an IRA account. It can also be a low-maintenance asset. I mean, if you're lending money out of your IRA, you're simply waiting for that check to come in each month to pay the mortgage. You're not worrying about your tenants and the toilets and other headaches that can happen when owning real estate. So there can be less liability as well than owning real estate directly in the IRA account. So again, it's a couple of reasons why people do private lending within their IRA account. But that's kind of, again, we have that presentation, Be the Bank, for you to participate in, go watch online, and ask other questions about that. So main part of today's presentation was to talk about joint venturing, whether you're using an IRA or not, and really what you need to know about doing that. So we have Patty Ped with Ader Financial, who's joining us tonight. Patty, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you, Scott. How about you?
Very good. Well, at this point, Patty, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you. If you want to share your screen and go ahead and take over, share your slides, and we'll look forward to listening.
Sure. Thank you. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, we can see it right there. So yeah, if you can, Patty, just maybe speak up a little bit. It's a little difficult to hear you.
Okay. Is this a little better?
Oh, that's much better. All right. Well, I'll turn it over to you, Patty.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on this webinar. My name is Patty Ped. I'm with a company called Ader Financials. We are a private mortgage investment company. Today, we're going to talk about joint venturing. I know joint venture is a very major decision. So this webinar is mainly to provide an overview of the main ways in which you can set up a joint venture, the advantages and disadvantages of doing so, how to assess if you're ready to commit to a joint venture, mainly what you need to know about your partner when you're going into a joint venture, and what you need to make it work, and what kind of questions you need to ask before and after going into a joint venture. Disclaimer here, I am not a lawyer or an attorney, so please don't construe this as legal advice at any cost. This is just for educational and informational purposes only. When you are going into any kind of joint venture or anything related to the business, it's always advisable to contact your attorney so they can give you the right and specific advice related to your business. Just a little bit of background about Ader Financials. As mentioned before, we are a nationwide private mortgage investment company. We deal mainly with distressed mortgages, or what we call real estate notes. As Scott mentioned previously in his slides, we are one of the legally acceptable investments or alternative investments that IRA accepts, the IRS accepts. So distressed mortgages are nothing but secured notes. This is just similar to the mortgage that you would have on your own property. So in some situations, the borrowers default on those mortgages, and then the banks try to liquidate these non-accrual loans. So Ader Financials buys these mortgages from the banks at very deep discounts. And once we become the legal owners of the mortgage, we try to work with the borrowers. We try to help them out, understand their situation, give them several options, and we try to work with the homeowners and try to convert these non-performing mortgages into performing mortgages. Most of our funding comes from our investors or our joint venture partners. We also use our own capital in the process, which makes sure that we are equally invested in the process and in the business. We offer a very high level of service and flexibility to the investors and to the homeowners. We work with many different members of our team. We call them the power team. There are investors, bankers, realtors, attorneys, document custodians. There are a bunch of different people that we work with. We have a very strong team in some specific states, and we're always trying to build new relationships and get new joint venture partners. So our mission statement, very briefly, is it's a threefold statement. So we aim to achieve very high returns for our joint venture partners or our investors. We also want to make sure or ensure that our homeowners receive unique solutions for all of their mortgage difficulties that usually the bigger banks are unable to provide. And when it comes to lending institutions like banks, we want to help them liquidate their non-performing assets and get them off of their books. So it's always creating win-win situations for everybody's involved. I mentioned before, we work with all kinds of joint venture partners. We buy non-performing residential mortgages. We don't currently do commercial mortgages, and we make sure that they are mostly in the first position or they have the first lien on the property. We are nationwide. We buy in all 50 states, especially in Indiana, Ohio, Florida, Michigan, Tennessee, and Texas. We work with individual investors, institutional investors, and especially IRA investors, and we work with them on a deal-by-deal basis. So each investor is tied to a specific asset. This is not a pool or a fund. Each investor buys into, or we get into a joint venture agreement for a particular asset with one investor. It could either be one single LLC or a company, or a single investor with their IRA account. So usually the joint venture, in our case of joint venture partnership, the investor funds the asset purchase and the workout costs, and ADER Financials will do all of the groundwork. We would handle the asset sourcing. We would talk to the borrowers. We would negotiate with the borrowers, get the loan from non-performing to performing. We do the workout ourselves, and at the end of the term of the joint venture, we provide several exit strategies to the joint venture partners so that we can capture the investment gains, which would then be split between us and the joint venture partner. We work with both active and passive investors. The main thing is we provide very detailed documentation about what is going on and why we chose the asset and what kind of returns we are expecting from that asset. We look into feasibility analysis even before we purchase into the deal, so that all of these deals, or most of the deals, are provide us with very high returns. So in this presentation specifically, I'm going to be talking about why we would want to get into a joint venture, what types of joint ventures we have, what the benefits and risks are, how would you assess if you're ready to do a joint venture, how would you plan this JV relationship, how you can choose a good JV partner, and most importantly, how you can end the joint venture. Having an exit strategy is also a very important part of joint venture, so we'll also talk about that a little bit here. So what is a joint venture? There are many, many different types of joint ventures. Again, this is a very generic presentation that is mostly focused on giving you just an overview of this process and how we do it here at Ada Financials. So a joint venture usually involves two or more individuals or businesses who are pooling in their resources or their expertise to achieve a specific target or perform a specific goal or task. The risks and the rewards are shared between the two parties. Exactly how they are shared is defined by the type of agreement that they have, which we would go into more detail in the next few slides. Usually a joint venture is performed when you're either looking to expand your business, when you're looking to develop it, or you are trying to explore new markets and you're trying to look into providing more services for your existing clients. So when you enter a joint venture agreement, you would have access to more resources. You would greatly increase the capacity at which your business or you individually are functioning. You would also have increased technical expertise from the other company that you are joint venturing with. And you would also have access to established markets and distribution channels. So that when it comes to types of joint venture, there are many different types again, but broadly you can classify them into two types. The first option is to do it on a case or a project-based or a contract-based joint venture agreement, where you would take a particular deal and enter into a joint agreement with a specific company for that limited amount of time in a specific manner for a particular deal. You would set out the terms and conditions for it. You would specify how exactly you want the whole thing to pan out, what the duration of the agreement is. So it's basically for a particular deal. The other way you can set up a joint venture is to set up a whole new company, wherein your company and the joint venture company, both of them would become partners and set up a whole new company. And then each of you would own the shares in the company and would decide how it would be managed between the two of you. But again, depending upon how you want to set your business up, you would choose either of these two options. But the main questions that you would have to ask yourself in order to make this decision are do you want to be involved in managing the company or not? What happens if the venture goes bad? How would you want to share the profits? How would you want to manage the risks that are involved in the company? How would you like to be taxed on the income that you are getting from the company? So based on these answers, you may be able to decide which one seems like a most likely fit for your company. And again, it's better to discuss these options with your attorney and go through what the advantages and disadvantages are for both of these scenarios so you can decide which one best suits your scenario. So the benefits of a joint venture agreement, a joint venture is the best one to get into if the joint venture is actually helping you strengthen your company and your long-term relationships and provide specific goals for you. For example, like we talked a little bit about this before, so it can give you access to new markets that you've never had access to before. You could either, if you are in the business of selling or buying, you can get more number of clients for or buyers for your product or for your real estate. Or if you are looking for more sellers and you need more sources for your deals, a joint venture partner can also provide you access to that. It will also increase your capacity to do more number of deals rather than doing them all by yourself. It will also reduce some of your risks involved because you'll be sharing your risk, and you would also be getting more capital for your investment through your joint venture agreement. You would have greater access to resources. You would have more staff, more technology, more systems that the other company has been using so far. You would have a wealth of information that an experienced joint venture company can provide for you if you are newly entering into the market, or if you want to be a passive investor, and if you're looking for returns, high returns through somebody who is more experienced in the field. A joint venture is a very, very flexible scenario. When you're writing your agreement, you will be able to specify what the term of the agreement is and what your roles and responsibilities are, what commitment you're expecting from the other party, that kind of thing. Now, as it is the rule with every investment, there are also some risks involved with joint ventures. The main risk or problems most of the time would occur from our experience here is because of insufficient communication between the parties involved. If you did not know what the objectives are for your joint venture, it doesn't make sense to have a joint venture agreement which does not specify what the requirements are and how each of your companies is going to fulfill those requirements. Also, if both the partners in the joint venture have different objectives, it also affects the joint venture such that you are not able to work on those specific tasks and achieve what you've set out to do. If there's also an imbalance in the levels of expertise or investments or the assets brought in, there may be a little bit of issues there. But again, if you are very clear about what you're putting down in your agreement, that really shouldn't matter that much. But if you have different cultures in your organizations, if you have different management styles, and if you're not able to integrate and cooperate between the two companies, that may bring in a few problems. You also need a lot of leadership and support, especially in the early stages where you are trying to figure out what the roles and responsibilities are and how exactly you're going to execute them. And if you don't get that kind of a leadership and support, that could lead to some risks, and it may lead to the deal falling through. So in our experience, if you have to minimize these risks, thorough research and analysis is very important. Not just research about the other company that you are planning to joint venture with. You also need to research about your own company and what your goals are and what your strengths are. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. But research is one of the most important aspects of a joint venture. You also need to have effective communication between all of the stakeholders involved in the joint venture. You need to have a clear-cut business plan that lists out all the things that we just talked about in an agreement format. So how do you know if you're ready for a joint venture? It's definitely a major decision. It's very, very it may be a good or a very beneficial scenario if done in a right manner. So before you go ahead and enter into a joint venture agreement, it's very important to review what your company's business strategy is, or your individual business strategy is. Did you want to invest in mortgage notes? Did you want to invest in unsecured notes? Or did you want to invest in gold or stocks or bonds? What's the other company investing in? What are their goals similar to yours? So once you know what you need from a joint venture or what you need in your own company, that would help you assess what the other company is providing and um, kind of assess where you would fit in or complement each other. And if you have other companies or other businesses that are doing something similar to what you have in mind, it may make sense to look into how they are dealing with their joint ventures, if they have specific companies for specific deals, or if they're using their IRA money to invest, or if they're bringing in their other private money, if they're bringing in other investors to fund those deals, what kind of deals they are investing in, what kind of returns they're getting from those deals. So it helps to have a clear view of what the other investors are doing and how they are dealing with the frequently faced problems, so that gives you an overview into what you need to think about your own business and your own strategy. And the other thing is doing a SWOT analysis. This is a very popular tool. SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. If you're an individual investor, this applies to you too. If you could analyze what your strengths are in a business, what you could bring to the table, and what your weaknesses are. Do you need more due diligence help? Do you need services that can provide sources of these notes for you? Do you need more people who can do all of the work for you, and do you want to be a passive investor? So once you know what your weaknesses are and how much time you can contribute to it, are you looking for somebody who can make calls on your behalf? So once you know what you need, it may help you in identifying the opportunities. What kind of opportunities exist for me to grow? Can I use my IRA account? What kind of returns would I get if I invest using my IRA account? So once you start answering all of these questions, which would also bring you to the threat section of it. What are my biggest threats in this market? What do I need to look out for? What kind of risks am I undertaking? How would I minimize these risks? So once you start answering all of these questions, it will make this clear about what kind of a joint venture partner you're looking for, so that you can find a company that complements your own ideas, your strengths and weaknesses. If you have a company and you have employees, you need to bear in mind that not everybody may be open to doing a joint venture. So it may make sense to start building effective work relationships between the two organizations as you start getting into the joint venture, in order to incorporate some of these business strategies and values between the two companies and come up with a good business plan. Once you start working in the joint venture, you may experience a lot of growth in your business. You may see that you have more number of deals to do, more number of mortgages that you are dealing with, more product shipments that you're sending out every week or every month. So you need to assess how ready your company, your business, or you are in order to deal with a growth in your business. Do I have enough members to deal with the due diligence aspect? Do I have enough attorneys or the right team to access this information and work on it with me? So once you have the once you can assess your readiness, you will and this also feeds into your weaknesses and your strengths, which will tell you if you need more members in your team, or if you need more technical resources, or what weaknesses you have, so that you can find a complementing partner. Planning a JV relationship is very important. As mentioned, whatever your aims are, both the parties need to feel that they are benefiting from the joint venture. So before you go ahead, you need to recognize what tasks need to be completed and who is doing those tasks, what the roles and responsibilities are for each organization or each department, and how you're going to go about doing that. You need to understand what your joint venture agreement is about. If it's between the investor and the company, an individual investor, you need to know what your IRA account is contributing, how the funds are being distributed. Is it a quarterly basis? Is it a monthly basis? How the funds are coming in, how the funds are going out, what documentation you need to provide the IRA company. So many different things that you need to keep in mind and that need to be included in the joint venture agreement. You also need to set realistic expectations. You cannot assume that a deal would go through in the first 6 months, especially in the note business. It is a very slow process. The deals, just to board the loan, it takes about a month to a month and a half. So you need to have realistic expectations about the timelines for the deals, how long it would take for each step, and what to expect. You also need to think about how you would measure your success. I think we talked about SMART goals before. SMART is measurable. It has to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive.
Yeah, Patty, are you still there? I think we lost you. Hello? Patty, hello. We're having trouble hearing you. Oh, there you are. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Kind of lost you there for a second.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened there. So, yeah, so I was just talking about the planning your JV relationship. So setting up realistic expectations is very important. And writing your agreement is one of the most important things that you would be doing. And again, once you finish drafting the first agreement, make sure that your attorney looks into it, or your IRA administrator or your custodian looks into it, and make sure that it is a legal document and there are no complications that could arise using that agreement. So how do you choose the right JV partner? Your ideal partner would be somebody who has the resources, the skill set, and the assets that would complement your own. If you are a new investor and you do not have too many resources that you could use, the ideal JV partner would be somebody who is experienced, who has been in the field for a few years, who has done a few deals so far, and can provide you with the right guidance in terms of what kind of deals you need to look into, what assets can provide you with the double-digit returns that you are expecting, what are the pitfalls in the industry that you need to avoid. So they would be able to give you a lot of guidance as to the industry because they've been in the field and they have all the data that they've been working on for the past years. The joint venture needs to be a good fit between the two investors. So The main questions that you can ask or consider are, how well are the JV partners performing? How many years have they been in the industry? How do they feel about collaboration? Are they active? Are they looking for other joint investor partners? Do they have a level of commitment? Do they have the same level of commitment as you? If they're not, if you feel like they're not committed to achieving the same results as you, then they may not be a very good fit for you in this project. Do they have the same business objectives? Do they want to get the same type of yields? Do they look into getting the specific types of deals that you would be interested in investing in? Can you trust them? Have they had successes before? What kind of reputation do they have? Just ask around. Other investors who may have worked with them before may be able to tell you what their work ethic is like, what they've heard about them, or what their experience has been just talking to somebody at their company, and what kind of relationship they share with the company. You also need to check if they are financially secure. Do they have any credit issues? Do they have any debts? Have they ever filed for bankruptcy before as a company? Has the owner filed for bankruptcy before? So you need to look into their financial security to ensure that you're not pouring money down the drain, and the joint venture the joint venture company is able to provide you with security for the money that you're investing with them. Do they already have joint venture relationships with other individuals or businesses? If you are an IRA investor, have they worked with IRA investors before? Have they worked with other companies before? If they have joint venture relationships with other companies, what kind of agreements are they? Are they dependent upon the success of the deal? What duration do these agreements last for? What kind of management team do they have? Do they have a team that sits at the computer all day and is doing all of the due diligence work and all of the work for you? Or are they hiring third-party services to do this? What kind of services do they use? How much in expenses can you expect for each of these deals? And how is the company performing overall? Do they have a good marketing team? Do they have a team, a power team that can go out and deal with the mortgage or the distressed mortgages effectively? How successful are they? Did they ever have any deals which had to be scrapped in the end, that didn't work out in the end? Or did they have deals that have successfully returned a good return on investment? And can they show you some kind of sample deals that they have been working on that can give you kind of like an overview of what to expect from them? Do they communicate with you effectively? Do they call you back when you give them a call? Do they respond to your emails? Do they specify what exactly they are looking for and what kind of what kind of tasks and responsibilities that they have taken up in the past few months, and what their status is at each level? Do they seem to be knowledgeable in their field? Do you see other people going up to them for advice? Do they have all the data that is required in order to deal with a specific project? And how many deals have they done before, and how many of those were successful deals? This is again one of the most important parts is to create a joint venture agreement. What exactly needs to be included in the agreement? A written agreement should always be signed by both parties, and before you sign it, make sure that these aspects are discussed in the agreement. You need to know what the structure of the joint venture is. We talked about two basic structures. If you are just entering the joint venture for a particular deal or an asset, or if you are setting up a whole new business based on for both of your companies, you need to specify what the objectives of the joint venture are. You need to know what the term of the joint venture is, or what the duration is. Is it from 12 months or 18 months, or is it for the five years, or how long are you going to be associated? If it is a deal-based or a project-based one, it may be a short-term investment or short-term agreement. But if it's a long-term venture, like a real estate venture, it may be more like a 3-year or a 4-year or 5-year agreement. So it depends on what kind of deal you're looking at. What kind of financial contributions you will each make. If you will be funding the asset and they will be doing the workout, or if you're going to put in 50% of the capital and the joint venture partner is putting in the other 50%, or what contributions you're making needs to be specified, and the exact dollar amount needs to be specified in the agreement. If you have any assets or employees, you need to specify how, or if you're transferring any of your employees or assets to the joint venture. If you have any intellectual property created by the joint venture, you need to address how who's going to own it and what you would want to do with it. You also want to talk about the management and control of the joint venture, roles and responsibilities, and what processes you are following, and what kind of documentation you're doing. You want to talk about how the liabilities are shared, the profits are shared, and if there is a loss incurred, how you would want to absorb the losses. And most importantly, if there is any dispute between the partners, you want to address how they would be resolved. And one of the most important things that usually gets looked over is an exit strategy. In case one of you needs to get out of the joint venture agreement, what kind of exit strategies do you have? Does the other one buy out their share of the joint venture? Does one of them have to pay a penalty for getting out of the agreement? What kind of, do you sell the asset and share the profits between the two of you? Or do you have to be the owner of the deal until the end of the term of the agreement? So there are many things that you need to address in terms of what your exits are, but that's something to think about when you're writing your agreement, so that both of you have an equal opportunity to be able to get out of the agreement if needed. You may also be asked to sign a non-disclosure or a non-circumvent agreement or a confidentiality agreement because you want to protect the confidential information that would be shared between the two companies in terms of the investment. Again, once you finish writing the agreement, once you have the first draft, make sure that your attorney reviews it and they go over the details of it so they can tell you if there are any changes, if you need to add or delete any stuff from there. So the most important thing to make a joint venture relationship work is effective communication, like we talked about before. You need to know exactly who's doing what, and you need to have regular meetings with all the key people involved in the joint venture. so you can get regular updates about what's going on in the company and what you've done so far and what you plan to do in the future. There needs to be absolute transparency in terms, not just in terms of financial issues or what you're spending on, but also in terms of who's doing what and how much you are, how much time you're putting into it, and what resources are being used, and what vendors are being used, and all of that information. If you have attorneys, you need to, the joint venture company would have to disclose what the status of the joint venture is, and what if it's in a note industry, you need to know if the property is going into foreclosure, or if the borrower is filing for bankruptcy, or everything has to be transparent, so everybody who's involved in the joint venture knows exactly what steps are being taken at each point. You also need to have shared goals, and you need to have both or all the parties involved need to work towards the same goals. And you need to have performance indicators that tell you exactly where you are with your goals, and if you need to make any changes to your strategy in order to achieve those goals. You also need to have a very flexible and a friendly relationship with the joint venture partner. Not everything goes according to the book. There are some unexpected things that crop up, and you need to be able to be very flexible about those things and have some kind of a buffer in there in order to address those issues and help run the project smoothly. Again, if there is any dispute, you need to approach it very positively and look for win-win solutions that would help both you and your joint venture partner. How to end a joint venture. If it's a project-based or a deal-based joint venture, it may end when the project is finished. But in case of a non-performing mortgage, it wouldn't end automatically, because typically at the end of the joint venture agreement, it would either have been converted into a performing note, or it would have become a foreclosure or a real estate owned property. So at that point, you need to include the termination conditions or exit strategies in your agreement, where it would have several options listed. If you could buy out the performing note from the joint venture partner, and then you would become the owner of it and receive monthly payments, regular monthly payments or monthly cash flow. Or if you need to, or if you want to buy out the property from the joint venture company and become the owners of the property and give it out for rent, so that you can start receiving monthly cash flow again. So there are several exit strategies if you want to buy it out, or if you want to just sell the note to another investor and split the profits between the two of you. So there's multiple ways in which you can liquidate the asset and share the profits. And these termination conditions need to be included in the joint venture agreement. The original agreement should also talk about how you would share the intellectual property, if there's any confidential information, who is protecting them at the end of the joint venture. If you're using a document custodian to protect all of the documents or original notes and mortgages involved, you need to figure out who will be taking care of those documents at the end of the joint venture, and who the owner of those documents would be, and how you would protect it. If there is any future income arising from the joint venture's activities, like any additional monthly cash flow or any bankruptcy payments or any other payments that you are given, or foreclosure payments or anything else, you need to figure out how these funds would be dispersed and who would be taking care of them. If there is any debts or guarantees that are given to your homeowners at the end of the joint venture, you need to figure out how you would want to address them. If the homeowner wants to contact you, you need to figure out who the owner is and how they can contact you at the end of the joint venture. So that's pretty much a brief overview of what a joint venture looks like and how you can go about assessing the advantages, the benefits, and the risks involved, and what are the major questions that you should be asking yourself and your joint venture partner in order to ensure that it is a competent and a good relationship that you have with your joint venture partner. And as mentioned before, Ada Financials does do joint venture deals. We have several other videos on YouTube. We've partnered with Scott Maurer and Advanta IRA, and we have several other videos on our YouTube channel which talks about introduction to distressed mortgages, what exactly these distressed mortgages are, how they work, what kind of mortgages are there, what you can invest in, what kind of returns you can expect from them, and also what due diligence you need to do in order to make sure that you have the best deals and you're investing in the right product. We also talk a little bit about investing with your IRA, what specifically you can invest in and what you need to be careful about when you're investing in these secured notes. So please do go to our YouTube channel. You can look into all of those videos, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me. You can reach me at patty@aderfinancials.com, and you can also call in anytime and we can set up a one-on-one meeting to discuss your financial goals and how we can achieve them. Scott?
All right, well, Patty, thanks. Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing information on kind of your model and how you guys work with joint ventures and kind of how you operate and what other people should consider when they're looking at joint venturing. So again, if someone's looking at making investments in their IRA, or even I guess without an IRA, it's important to really know what you're getting into before. Whether you look at Ader's model specifically, whether you kind of come up with some of your own things that you want to look into. Certainly it's a very good thing to get educated and know exactly what it is that you're doing. If you have any questions specifically for Patty, you can email her, patty@aderfinancials.com, or call the number on this slide, 267-571-6119 as well. So make sure that you reach out to Patty if you have any specific questions. We're not taking any questions tonight in tonight's webinar, so please do reach out to Patty. I'm going to pull back the presentation here to our slides and just jump ahead. So if anyone has any questions on self-directed IRAs, you can certainly reach out to me as well. Again, Scott Maurer with Advanta IRA. And if you have questions for Patty regarding joint venturing and due diligence and other things she talked about, please reach out to her as well. Patty, thanks again for coming on tonight.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for
everybody listening, and everybody who's listening, please check out our YouTube page. If you're listening live tonight, you can catch the recording that'll be up on there. Also, again, all the other information that we have and the other webinars that we've done as well. So thanks again for attending, and hope everyone has a nice holiday.